Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 edition of the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. I'm Teneille Newallo, the Education Coordinator for ttff 21, and I'll also be your moderator this afternoon. This year, we have an abundance of films and industry events that consist of masterclasses, workshops, presentations, panels, talks, info sessions, and a new discussion series entitled Ask the Veterans. We also have Q&As and we'll be live with the filmmakers, so please be sure to check out our website or social media pages to find all the events or films that you might be interested in. Today, I'd like to welcome you to the narrative panel with filmmakers that have projects selected in this year's film festival. All the panels are brought to you with the support of Shell Trinidad and Tobago Limited. So a little bit about myself. I'm a screenwriter, actor, producer who's also directed a couple of projects. I have a background in theater and many years of experience both in front and behind the camera, but this is not about me, it's about the panelists right here. So I don't want to waste too much time and I would like to introduce them to you. Just a little note, Yannis Sainte-Rose won't be able to join us today, but I do encourage you to watch his film, Mal Nom. In English, that's Tough Guy. It's really funny, but more importantly, it has a really great message. Since he's not here, I'll just read his log line from the film that can be found on our website. Following an inappropriate remark towards a woman, a young man finds himself plunged into a parallel world where he faces a series of catcalls and microattacks, the kind usually reserved for women. All right, so I'm going to start by introducing. We'll start, since this is a panel of ladies, I'll start with Andrés. Andrés Farías, whose film was the opening night film for the festival. He's a filmmaker and video artist from the Dominican Republic. In 2014, he was selected for the 25th Eduardo Leon Jimenez Art Biennial Competition, for which he won the Patricia Phelps de Cisneros Collection Award. In 2015, he was selected for Concordia University's Emerging Leaders of the Americas program. His first feature film, Candela, which opened ttff 21, won the Dominican Fund for Cinematographic Promotion and was selected for Sundance Writers Lab, Sundance Edit Residency, and Sundance Music Residency. Welcome, Andrés.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here.
Happy to have you here. Next, we have Ayana Harper. She's an editor by trade. And the interview, her film in this year's film festival, is her directorial debut. She's a graduate of the International Film School of Paris from 2014. Ayana currently resides in Toronto and is the lead editor for Storyplay Media, a production company based in Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome, Ayana.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Next, we have Juliette McCawley, somebody I've known for a long time and have worked with a few times. Her short films have been screened in film festivals worldwide. Having lived and worked in the US and China, she returned to Trinidad where she has written, directed, produced several award-winning short films. Juliette has also collaborated with several production companies on feature films and documentaries. Her last short film, Samson's Heart, won the People's Choice Award at the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival. Juliette studied advanced film directing at Central Film School in London. And Juliette is not here anymore. Where did she go? She disappeared, but hopefully she'll join back. There she is. So Juliette is in the middle of transitioning from one place to another. Before I introduce Macha, we'll get back to that. How about that? You could explain that to us in a minute, okay?
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Next, we have Gisela Rosario Ramos, also known as Macha Colón. I'll be calling her Macha from now on. Is an undisciplined Puerto Rican artist based in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Her award-winning short documentary, El Hijo de Ruby, has been shown in international festivals. She's also a cultural events producer and worked as artistic and programming director at Casa de Cultura Ruth Hernandez. She's at Art Matters Foundation and National Association of Latino Arts and Cultures grantee, and in 2020, she received the William Graves Fund from Firelight Media. She's a 2021 United States Artist Fellow and is part of the Puerto Rican Artist Initiative from Northwestern University for the next 2 years. Perfume de Gardenias is her first feature film and is in competition in this year's film festival as well. Welcome, Macha.
Hi, how are you?
So before we get into anything, I want to ask everybody where y'all are right now. So let's start with Juliette because, well, if she's there, she's sometimes in and out with us because she's traveling. So when she comes back, she'll let us know. Let's go to Macha. Where are you right now?
I'm in the green room of the WNYC studios in New York. We're about to start shooting a artist residency for the next couple of days. So actually, I might have to get off like at 4 because they're sort of waiting for me. But
Oh my
so
goodness.
I'm here in New York,
So
running behind schedule like always in a
we may
production.
lose you and Juliette. So it might just be you, me, and Andrés and Ayana at the end. But we'll see what happens. We'll go with the flow. All right. Ayana, where are you at?
I'm in Toronto currently. So yeah, I've been here about a month and a half now.
Okay. And
Yeah.
Andrés?
I'm in Santo Domingo right now, the capital of the Dominican Republic.
Nice, amazing. So, all right, before we get into anything else, I want you guys to just give a quick, I'm talking about quick, like 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes background of how you got started in film and to where you are today. And maybe tell us a little bit, not too long, but just a little bit about your film in this year's film festival. Who'd like to start? Anyone?
I can go ahead.
Yeah, let's go.
So like you said, I went to film school in France. But before that, I would say in high school, I had a French teacher, who decided she wanted to do a project where she had us do a film on the environment. Mm-hmm. And when I did that, I had to obviously edit it. And it was at that moment that I realized, one, I was quite good at editing, and two, it was something that I enjoyed. And she was actually the person who sort of encouraged me to pursue film. So I'd say that's sort of where I got my start. Then eventually I made my way to film school in Paris, and then I did a concentration in editing. As of right now, I'm in Toronto again at school. So I'm doing a 1-year post-production program. And so in the film festival right now, I have my first short that I actually directed, and it's about the difficulties of being a filmmaker. So
right.
Yeah, it was as filmmakers, I think we could all relate. So I just sort of took a page from my own life. I was like, let me put it on screen.
Right, yeah. And you said that you really, what you really enjoy is editing. That's your first love, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll get a little bit more into that later, and into documentary filmmaking and those sorts of things, because we're not in a documentary panel, but I have to touch on it because I know that's your interest, and it's interesting what you did with your film, this mockumentary,
right,
which is a narrative, but yeah. Andrés, can you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are and about your film?
Well, in my case, I studied like advertising in college, and while I was studying advertising, I started to work as a PA, production assistant, for some Dominican films, as Ladrones a Domicilio from Ángel Muñiz, for example. And after I finished college, I went to Madrid in Spain to study cinema. I did a master there in cinema and like video installation. And so I spent 3 years in Madrid, and after that I went to Cuba, to the EICTV, Escuela Internacional de Cine y Televisión de San Antonio de los Baños.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, to study like film directing. And when I came from Cuba to the Dominican Republic, I started to work as a first AD. So I have made like 10, 12 films as the first AD. So when I came, I did, for example, Cocote, Woodpeckers. And yeah, I came with the script of Candela that I wrote with Laura Congedo in film school.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's my first film as a director.
All right, fantastic. Maybe we should go to Juliette before she disappears. Juliette, can you give us a little bit about your film background? First off, you need to tell everybody what's going on with you while you're in a car and how come you're traveling. The life of a filmmaker. It is crazy. So, so if you could give me a brief 2 minutes about where you came from as a filmmaker and how you got to where you are today, and maybe a little bit about your film in the festival. Pause, Juliette. I'm so sorry. Apparently, we're not hearing you at the moment, so you might have to leave and come back. Yes. Yeah, you'll have to exit and then come back because tech isn't hearing you. So Macha, let's go to you then. Apologies for the
Uh,
technical difficulties, everybody.
it always happens.
Yeah.
My story is a little twisted, and it's not a straightforward one. Mainly because I think I grew up dreaming of making films or loving films, but not knowing how to do it. I mean, in Puerto Rico, there's no film school, and I never considered myself an artist anyway. So it's something that it took me a long time to get to that point. Um, so making films has been a part of discovering myself as an artist and in a way of also becoming a happier and better person. And
Yeah.
so it comes from a very struggle of finding that out and recognizing myself. So, but to try to make it short, um, I ended up in New York, moving to New York. I mean, I lived in San Juan right now. I'm just here working for the next couple of days. But I lived in New York for 14 years, and when I moved to New York, I had this dream of like I was like, oh yeah, I want to study film, but I don't know what to do. Oh, maybe photography, and I just tried different things, and I ended up um, falling into this program that was for minorities that were unemployed and it was for to learn the basics of being a PA. It was this fantastic program that had this initiative and this theory that to infiltrate the media, you would start training people for entry level positions.
Right.
So, just teach like all these like minorities like the basics so they can just start working in productions and then they go up from there. So I went into that and that I bumped into documentary. Video documentary was becoming stronger because cameras were becoming cheaper. So I fell in love with the social issue, political documentary. Um, Later, I was at the same time I was at the Hunter College, falling in love with Black and Puerto Rican studies, which
Right.
is something else I didn't know I could study. And I also just flipped out. I was like, I didn't know you could study this kind of stuff. And then it turns out that there was a video documentary class at Hunter, and I just signed up without being in the department. And the teacher, the first day at the end of the class, I went to confess to the teacher. If I could stay in the class because it was a class for at that point the department was like radio and film and television and radio. And it was a department and for that class. And then she was like, "Oh, don't you think you know the same or more than the rest of the people?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay, so stay." And then she became my mentor. And
So
that
you did
first
some
class,
direct work, like.
yeah, and then the first class, when I got to the editing part, I discovered that I loved editing, and it just became, I just went head over heels with editing. And I was like, the one who was there until the end, but they would kick me out of the editing lab. And then when my teacher saw that, she was like, I think you like this, right? So she turned me into the assistant editor for a project that she was working on. And I actually, at the same time, I was taking, so documentary sort of became my thing and editing. I love editing. I think I have learned a lot also about narrative through editing. I think it's a great experience. I think it's also difficult sometimes to take off the hat of editor and director and switch that. So that's something that becomes almost like a little problem for later on. But I think it's an amazing way. I mean, people who don't understand what editing is don't understand the power of narrative behind the editor's hands,
Well, I
right?
know, Juliette, you're also an editor, right? So she edits as
Mm.
well. Andres, I don't know if you edit as well, do you?
Not really,
Not really, yeah. So you're the odd
but
man out.
I love editing, and I agree with everything that the girl
Macha
said.
said.
Like, I think that the film is really made in the editing room.
Right. So Macha, can you give us a little bit about Candela? I mean, sorry, not Candela. I mean, Perfume de Gardenias.
I mean, I could, but I'm not the
Yeah, could you
director.
tell us about Candela? What are your thoughts? We'll get to that later. But yes, could you tell us about your film in the festival, Perfume de Gardenias? Yeah?
About what it's about?
Yeah, just a little
Okay,
short
well, it's about
logline.
it's about Isabel, this woman in her 80s that after becoming widow, sort of discovers that she can be very creative at decorating, people's funerals, and then decorating funerals becomes like a space where she can express her creativity, and she all of a sudden sort of discovers this a space of something she loves, and sort of blossoms, flourishes in this in this time of her life.
Right. Great. Thank you. And Juliette, let's see if we can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
I'm hearing you. It's all good. Yeah, I think
Yay!
everything. Yay! All
Sorry
right,
about all the technical.
it's okay. It's the world we're living in now. So yes, tell us a little bit about your background. A quick synopsis, 2 to 3
I'll
minutes.
try and be as quick as I can. I was an actor for 15 years in Trinidad and then in the States. And then I did some screenwriting courses. I was acting in a feature film, and the DP, when I showed him my first script, he said, well, you should direct it. And it was an aha moment for me, because as an actor, I understood what it's like to be an actor. And as a very visual person, I knew what exactly I wanted, and it was my script, my baby. So I was like, yeah, this, and I'd never ever dreamed or thought of being a director until that point. And long story short, I did my first film and then had to move to China, where I continued to do short films and do corporate films and start a theater company. And then I had a bad case of imposter syndrome, where I felt, well, I never went to film school. I'm just learning this. I'm just doing this by the skin of my teeth, by guessing a lot. And so then I went to film school in London, where my focus was on directing, because I knew I had a good idea of having done being a one-woman filmmaker, lighting, shooting, costuming, makeuping. I just wanted to really work with directors, and so in film school, that's what I focused on. And then I came back to Trinidad and
made a lot of films.
Yeah, did short films, worked in a lot of corporate films, did documentary films, helped you with the Cutlass film, and being able to collaborate with a lot of really great filmmakers and production companies. And
so can you give us a brief log line about your film?
It's fairly simple. It's boy meets girl. It's a love story, but it's a love story told by two couples. And, is what drew them together the thing that will tear them apart, is the question we ask.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So now we can get into the conversation fun part of everything. All right. I just want to ask you guys. So let's talk a little bit about the process of putting a film together. I know everybody may have slightly different approaches. I don't know. I want to dive into that a little bit. How do you develop your idea from script to screen? Is this let me jump in and ask Ayana first.
Oh, well, in the case of the short that I did, because it was something that was so close to me, it was sort of easy for me to not feel like I didn't necessarily have to script it. I know if it's something bigger, so like I would know that for Candela or any of the other films in the film festival, there would have been a lot more scripting that you would have to do. And I think I was reading like just the other day in class that it's Alfred Hitchcock that said like you only need 3 things for a film: the script, and the script. because it really is where your film lives. If
did you find it difficult not working with a script? Like, or did you feel like you should have put a script together, or?
Not necessarily for this project. I mean, I do screenwriting, so I do understand the value of actually having a written script and something that other people can follow. Because I was doing it on myself, I didn't necessarily need it for this. I sort of had the ideas in my head. But getting it down on paper, getting it in an orderly fashion is definitely something that you need. It also helps you develop even what your story is about and not just what happens. Because at the end of the day, that's what you want to get across when you're doing filmmaking, is you want people to feel something when they watch your story. You need to know what the story is about. And it's at script level that you get there. So to me, in terms of narrative, the script is the first thing that you need to have like 100% down.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be like that for the other three projects here for sure. Like particularly like Juliette, where you shot everybody from different locations. Like, and can you explain to us what you did with your project? Because she shot during COVID and she experimented a bit.
I did madness, essentially. I used green screen. So the entire film was green screen. And I had all the actors talk directly to camera. Because essentially what this film was about was 7 conversations over the course of an entire relationship. And that it was, for me, this film was not about locations or about fancy sets or anything. It was about these moments of connection or disconnection that can happen in a couple. So it was a chance to sort of strip away of everything. And it's just the dialogue really, and it's the acting. So it was very frightening because I've never done a film where I really didn't know what it was going to look like at the end. But I knew I wanted, like in any relationship, there are conversations that happen that turn the whole course of a relationship, where it goes from meeting somebody to falling in love to the first fight. Like all these little moments are, and that's I knew going in, that's what I wanted the story to be. And as I wrote, I realized it's 7. And I've been in 2 7-year relationships. So I kind of like the idea of like these 7 main, days in these people's lives, like little moments in over 7 years. And that's kind of how I, formulated this kind of crazy thing. But yeah, and because it was COVID, I couldn't be in all these locations. I couldn't have all the actors be that close or even rehearse together. And it was originally just going to be shot, everybody just using their phone.
Right.
But the actors like the script so much. It's like, no, can we try and do this? How can we try and do this? Can we do this? Can we really film it properly? We want to be filmed. We want the opportunity to be filmed properly. And that's when the green screen option was presented by my wonderful DP, who had a production office with a green screen.
Right. So your DP, right? Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, Dion, who's an amazing human being and very kindly said yes to all my madness. So.
Amazing. And you got, so the other 2 feature films, I would say, was that would take, obviously it's a feature, right? So that would take a lot more preparation than something like a short would take. You want to tell us a little bit, have you ever directed a short, Andrés? Or Macha, have you guys directed short films?
Yeah, in my case, actually, before Candela, I did like 7 short films or something like that.
Right.
And actually, I did my thesis from the film school. It's called This Now. It's like a short film that is kind of like a spin-off of the feature film. So
when you say the feature film, which feature film?
Candela. Like
Candela, okay.
Yeah, there's on YouTube. There's like a short film. It's called This Now, and that's like it's like the short film of Candela.
Okay.
So actually, we did that short film as like kind of a essay in a way to understand like the world that I had in my head, and yeah, it was like a practice for the feature film, and also help us a lot to get like the money to make the film. Actually,
speaking of the world that you had in your head, you told this story from 3 different perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Why did you choose to tell it that way, I should ask?
That idea came from a crisis, from writer's block.
Oh, interesting.
Laura and I, after like being like writing the script for like 2 years and a half or something like that, after a writer's lab, we just went like to a big writer's block and crisis. So
How
from
did you get past the writer's block? Like, what did you do
we
to
bought a lot of beers. We
right?
went to an apartment. We bought like a lot of cigarettes, and we just said like, okay, let's finish this script. And we wrote for like 10 days, and we came up with a new script. And actually, the idea of the chapters like came from the novel because my film is an adaptation, a free adaptation from a Dominican
Right.
novel that is called Candela from Brian Duhar. So actually the book had these chapters. So from the beginning, I was always like considering the idea of telling the story in chapters. So after that crisis, it just we try it and we like it a lot. So it just
Yeah.
stood there. Yeah.
So that worked for you. Okay, great. Have you guys had the same experience before getting writer's block? Did you have that experience, Macha, at all when you were? Because this is your first feature film as well, right? Yeah.
It is my first feature. The process was so long. I mean, I started writing the first couple of pages for this film like in 2009. So my process was so long that
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if I remember had a writer's block. I think that it was more of finding time to write my issue. It's writing takes time, and I had to have other full-time jobs and other jobs while I was trying to work on the project. So I didn't have, it wasn't until like maybe 2014 that I got my first grant to development. So that's when I started being able to take time off to really work on it. But I've already have been going through years to, I would say the hardest part was going from like page 45 to page 80. So
Yeah. The second. Yeah. Second half of the script.
yeah.
What was the difficulty there for you? And that will lead me into my question that I'm going to ask all of you guys after, which is, what was your inspiration for these particular subjects?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, we can start with you. Like, why did you have such difficulty with the second half of the script? Did it have something to do with the story, or was it just not coming together for you naturally? Or why do you think that was?
I think it was a matter of maybe just questioning a lot of where do I wanted to take this story, and what kind of film I wanted to make and what kind of story I wanted to tell. I mean, this was inspired in something real. I mean, it's sort of like a play on something that I saw. It had to do with seeing my mom with her neighbors and friends talking and about going to a funeral and all getting all excited about going to a funeral together. And I was listening to them and saw my mom getting excited about being able to go out to do something besides taking care of my dad. That I was just like, huh, would they be willing to kill to have something to do? So, and I just found that really funny, but of course it just stayed sort of in my mind. and
That sparked
and
your,
then
yeah.
and then I around that same time in Puerto Rico started that trend. I mean, this guy who knew he was gonna die went and bought some clothes and went to a funeral home close to his house and said, "Listen, the day that I get killed, I want to be wearing this clothes on my wake, and I want to be standing in the corner of my apartment. I don't want to be laying down in a coffin." And that happened, and that was the Muerto Parao, which is became like a huge controversial thing because then people started like questioning, if that was right, if that was unethical, and he brought up so many questions that I just thought, well, this is so interesting. I
You
want to
wanted
give
to
it
explore
to
that.
this. Yeah, I just wanted to use that and give it to this other character as a space of, of happiness and creativity, but but at the same time, I was conscious that I wanted to do this for something bigger than just telling a possible funny and interesting story. Because personally, I'm concerned with um, our how we don't talk about death as part of life, and how we are so obsessed with idolizing youth and being forever young and feeling forever young, and that we just deny that we're going to die. And what does that mean? Like, why can't we live lives where we acknowledge that? And so, I was so conscious of that as well, that I think it felt like I respected so much the message of what I wanted to sort of explore, that it sort of blocked me a bit, I think.
Right.
Maybe pushed to my head.
And how were you able to overcome that?
Um, hmm. It's, again, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know, the other filmmakers, but I'm the type of artist that I have to sort of I had to not only recognize but just embrace that I don't stop changing things until the moment that it's being done. So, and now I sort of warn people, like, hey, don't freak out, but I have become to understand that even though the script says that might change.
Do you guys feel like that? Are you guys like that as well, the rest of you? Juliette is shaking her head. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Because I try not to have an ego about my script. And if an actor comes and says, "Hey, I think this character might say this," or as things are unfolding, I realize, oh, maybe this is something else that could happen. I think it's good to have an organic approach sometimes to your script, and it allows interesting things to happen.
Right. How about you, Andres and Ayana?
In my case, like right now, I'm trying to learn that actually it's okay to change things. But for me, I'm more like a control freak, and for me, I work a lot with I try to develop my ideas in pre-production, and I try to close my ideas in pre-production, and I try to go to the set more or less clear idea of the shooting list and all that. So in like, yeah, for me, Candela, it's more or less what I had in mind, and what we work in pre-production.
So what if an actor came to you and was like, this line doesn't feel organic to me, and feel better if I said it this way? How would you react?
That, I try to work with the team, with the DP, the actors, and all that, and um I try to use their best ideas for the film,
So
because
you
at the
do
end,
that in advance, like you
yeah,
use
but I
their
try to do
input.
I try to do it in pre-production. I try to
Right.
take all those ideas in pre-production. But of course, also you have to be open to what life give you for
Right.
free, and life is better than any idea that I had before, maybe. So I try to be open. I try.
I gotcha. All right. Well, I know Ayana's. Before I get to Ayana, there's a question from Kafi Kareem for the panelists. Have any of the narrative films on the panel been commercialized, licensed on streaming platforms, or licensed for TV? Any of you guys?
Yeah, you can watch. The interview is on storyplay.tv, so it is able to be seen there. But I think that's the only place as of right now, outside of the film festival.
After the film festival.
Yes, of course, where you'll be able to see it. Yeah.
Okay. Andres, you wanted to say something as well?
No, actually, I'm okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Ayana, I know you, like the others, are very much into editing. I think that's your primary interest. Yeah. So your film is a mockumentary, you were saying.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so in terms of inspiration,
Yeah.
it sort of came out of what was actually happening to me. So last summer, I kind of was having that, I guess, typical filmmaker existential crisis. What am I doing with my life? Blah, blah, blah. And I decided to take a class at New York Film Academy online. And it ended up being a documentary class. And we had to do like a 2-part series. And I had, in fact, shot something else. And it totally didn't work. And so I ended up with a deadline and footage that was awful. And I spent like 24 hours absolutely panicking, just thinking, what am I going to do? And then I thought, I'm going to do that. But why don't I just document my experience of trying to do this documentary and it's not working? And I have to give my dad a real shout out because he definitely is the star of the second half. And again, I think anyone that's done a documentary also knows when you have a subject that won't cooperate, that also becomes a very difficult experience. So that's basically what it was. And so I just sort of decided to parody the exact experience that I was going through.
Right, I see. Okay. And your, Andrés, I know yours was based on a book, but what was your reason? Why did you choose that book as your first film?
That's a great question, actually. In my case, like Candela was, I just fell in love with the universe that Ray present in the novel. It's like a Santo Domingo. Like in the novel, I found the words to describe the Santo Domingo as I see it, but I didn't have the words, so Ray had the words, you know.
I see.
So for me, the novel helped me to create my own Santo Domingo. So for me, the novel was a starting point. Also, the like once I was going to the States, to the United States, and they denied my visa. Like, so that was like a shock for me, that suddenly I realized that I was in an island and I wasn't able to go out. And for me, that was like really shocking. And so I started to like think in the sea that I see every day, as a reminder that I was like kind of trapped here. So like the film,
so that feeling drove you.
Yeah, I wanted to make the film about this idea of this image of the sea, that for some is like pleasure, for some is like parties, but for others is like a reminder that you can't go out. So yeah, it was like the driving creative force to write the script.
Well, you know, that kind of leads me into my other question. I do feel like filmmakers in general, I don't know, tend to operate from a particular driving force a lot of the times. What drives, particularly for you guys that have multiple films under your belt, what drives your ideas? What is the common thread that links all of your story ideas or your films together? Who wants, anybody can start, really. It's one to think about.
Well, I guess I will start because mine is simple.
Well, I think that
oh, I think we have a delay with Macha.
No?
Oh, you can't hear Juliette? Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, Macha, go ahead. Juliette will go after. Yeah.
It's just that I can't hear Juliette, by the way, so.
I realize, yeah. It's okay. You can go ahead first, yeah. Oh, Macha, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I mean, I think that I realized that, first of all, I think my characters are characters that don't necessarily typically have a voice. So there's something about that, about people who are sort of invisible. There's a play with invisibility, not necessarily just visual, but invisibility as in power in society. And so I think there's that, and there's this thing about what's not supposed to be important. I think I like to bring forward like stories about people or things are not supposed to be done or not supposed to be that
Taboo.
important. And yeah, so
Mhm.
I think there's something about that.
Right. Interesting. You, Juliette?
Um, when I studied psychology at university, and I've always been fascinated by little moments that can shift and change, and especially when I started script writing, and it was about people either changing from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie or not changing. And I always thought, well, what are the moments that can change a person perspective or change their lives? My parents made decisions that changed the trajectory of my entire life based on one decision, one moment, one interaction. And so a lot of my films are very quietly about small moments that
And do
have
you,
an impact.
well, is there a particular emotion in general that you think they all connect to, like something that you explore more than others, or idea that you explore more than others?
I guess it's just really about relationships between, like, love relationships, especially. I've had a moment. Yes, it's been mostly love. But I've also had like a moment of love between, of a love of a father for his child and the sacrifice that he would have gone through to help a child. The love of a widow for his past love, and then we're finding new love. It's so that's definitely love, like, between couples and between families.
Yeah, I think from the films that I've seen of yours, I think I would agree. Yeah, I definitely see that when you say that. Andres.
For me, I think that I really love tragedies, and I think that in a way all my stories are tragedies, and I really love this concept of uh, characters trying to fight their destiny, but they're not going to be able to do it. So yeah, for me, I think that.
Okay. Ayana, you have any input?
Yeah, because I do write. I think I'm sort of on the same. I would agree with sort of Juliette. I like really slice of life. Like I kind of like people feeling like if they would watch a film that I've written, it's like they just walked into someone's house and just like spent a day with them. I think a theme in the last couple of things that I've written has sort of been about like grief, but different. You can grieve different things the same way that Juliette was saying you can like love. There's different kinds of love. I feel like grief is something that, like, for a little while I was going through, not in the loss of a person necessarily, but just so I think that's sort of one of the things that in a couple of things that I've written, I'd say is sort of the theme. Right. It's a very complex emotion.
It is, right? And I think a lot of the things you guys touched on can all be explored in different complex ways. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of film in society, using film to not only entertain but to change perspectives, maybe. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's your job as a filmmaker to try to change people's perspectives? Is it your job just to educate? Is it your job just to entertain? Is it your job just to create, and whatever people take away from it, they take away from it? I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I think actually I don't think any specific filmmaker has any particular job. I think we all sort of do different things because of what we want to show in our films. But I think I'm thinking about like Trinidad and the lack of just representation that we have. I feel like you see major cultural identities in lots of other places that are linked by the fact that media and seeing themselves is something that they have. So it's really important for you to be able to see yourself. And also this idea that you're able to have a diversity of stories about yourself as well. Because one of the issues that I feel when, for example, we even look at films that come out of the Caribbean that make it elsewhere, it's often about the same kind of thing. And my experience of Trinidad, for example, is completely different to someone else's. And both stories have a place, especially if you want people to know about your island, your country, your culture. So it's important because it's definitely identity building. And so that's why you need it. And you don't want to have that danger of a single story. It's definitely who am I in the multifaceted way that can be expressed.
Right. Oh, Andrés agrees with you. You have anything to add to that, Andrés?
Yeah, I totally agree. I will add that I think that we must ask questions. So for me, like I try with my films to, like, if the audience at the end of the day, at the end of the projection, go out from the cinema with questions about their culture, their identity, their society, uh, I think that I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Would you guys agree, Macha, Juliette? I'd let Macha go first because she can't hear you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think that the only thing I would add is that it's like that because we haven't had that power and that access to being media makers up until maybe the last 3 decades, and even that, So I mean, the reality is that because we're not filming in film anymore, also because digital has made it accessible to more people, be it whatever discussions of being better, uglier, or whatever. The reality has been more accessible, has allowed more different voices to come forward. I mean, and at the same time, I can't wait for the moment where stories are just stories, and it doesn't have to be just a matter of fighting for space where we need to be represented, and we can just, I could do a story. I could do Shakespeare, and it wouldn't matter, or whatever I want to do. I think that would be a wonderful place because people think that um, the what's special about story has to do only with identity, but there's so many things more that it can make you. It can define you as a person, right? My identity doesn't define me just as a person. There's like many different things about a person. So, I mean, it's one thing and it's important and defines many things. I'm not saying it is not, it is, but
Yeah.
there's many more things. So,
Juliette?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that everybody's touched on. I mean, at the end of the day, I always think about back in more primitive times, we would gather around a fire and there was a storyteller. And for one moment, that storyteller would help us forget about, the hardships of life, the tigers or whatever that they're having to hunt and forage or whatever. But for one moment on this dark, this fireplace, you were captured and you heard stories and adventures and it took you away. It helped you escape.
I think that's probably why I'm so drawn to fantasy for some reason, even more so than others a lot of the times. I don't know if you guys do you all have a a favorite genre? Do you, Juliette?
I do like comedy and romance, really. It's because it's the world is so heavy sometimes out there that I like to have that escapism. That's why I also like fantasy as well, because then it's that escapism factor.
Would you guys agree? Or do you guys like the dark? You look like you like dark stuff, Andrés.
I like, right now I'm into melodramas. I really like thrillers and melodramas.
Yeah, me too. I'm really into dark things. Like usually just anything that'll just make you really sad or like really have to think. I'm like, yes, that's my
I feel you.
You know what? I do like fantasy, but I write a lot of dark stuff, even though it's fantasy, or even if it's thriller, it's fantasy and thriller, or it's fantasy and something else, but it's always has that dark tint to it. So I understand completely. So how do you think your life in particular has affected your filmmaking? Like, is there a reason you like melodramas more? Is there a reason right now where you want to maybe watch something that makes you cry? Or is there a reason that you want to feel good? How do you think people are drawn to certain genres for a particular reason?
I think it's just it depends what you what you use art for. I mean, I like the slice of life thing because I love the idea that we're all like on this rock, but experiencing sometimes even just the same thing, but so differently. So I love the idea that I could just like walk into someone's house and see how they live. So that's kind of why I like this more like slow, like I said, the slice of life kind of vibe. So I feel like that influences my filmmaking because that's generally then what I write is that like I said, I would just want someone to feel like you're going on an adventure with this person who's living on the same planet but experiencing something just completely different.
So is it like so maybe is it a desire to just connect with others, and maybe even also during COVID times, when we're all so disconnected from each other. I mean, right now we should be doing a panel in person, right? But we're on this medium. So
yeah, exactly. So it's just connecting, and also that's the beauty of filmmaking. We see that like we all sort of experience the same things, which is kind of nice also in a way. Even when tragic things are happening, there's beauty in them, and we all have stories that we can tell, and usually we relate to them.
Yeah. Do you guys agree?
Yes, I think that everything that happens like every day in everyday like life, like from an image that you see at the street to a story that a friend tell you in the I don't know with a coffee or whatever, from dreams or memories from my childhood, like everything can be used for a film, and everything will be used for a film.
True.
So yeah, I like
so beware if your friends are filmmakers.
Yeah, like I like melodramas because I grew up watching soap operas with my grandmother and my mom.
Yeah.
So it's part of me.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of what you just said, like if there's anything could be used for a film, right? So as filmmakers, how do you go about finding a unique way to tell a story? Is there a particular, is it different for, obviously it's different for every project, but I don't know, is there a certain method you use? Do you hide away in a corner and meditate to figure out how to pull this story out of this idea? Do you play with I know some writers will probably, like you, Andrés, will write from different perspectives and see which character should be the protagonist. Instead, you chose all three, right? So is there a particular method you go about, or is it just organic? Does it just happen naturally for you, or do you try to actually pull it out?
Like for me, like I have like some method, like I use notebooks as like kind of a diaries, creative diaries. I use mood boards. I like use like a lot of, I collect from all over the place like a lot like images, and I write ideas. I cut notes from the newspaper, whatever. But for me, what works the most is just like to trying to do the film that I want to watch on the movie theater. Like I always try to have that in mind. Like every frame, I just ask that question every time, every shot. Like I would love to have this shot in this film. I would love to like watch this in a big screen. If the answer is yes, I just go.
Yeah. Any input from you guys?
To me, it's doing research and doing about what's out there that has a similar theme. I mean, so like I watch a whole bunch of films that had to do with funerals, death rituals, and that kind of stuff. So I think that sort of helps me to define. I mean, before getting or at the same time that I'm doing all this, things similar to what Andrés is saying, but research helps me a lot about knowing, what's out there and what I don't want to repeat and what do I like that's been done. So.
In that project in particular, Macha, did that take you to a dark place doing that sort of research, funeral homes and deaths and those sort of things?
Yeah. I mean, when I said that, I was mostly talking about things that are done, like films and stuff like that, or books. But yeah, I mean, I did go to funeral homes and watch some weird and very sort of heavy scenes. I actually even went to um, a lab where I could see a body open up inside and you know touch a lung and and stuff like that, and went home with a smell like stuck to my nose for days that it was just horrendous and horrible. Um, and also because I started writing this and working on this like right before my father was already like really sick and he was bedridden. So I in the years that I've worked on this script, um, I lost my father and my mom, and one of my
So sorry.
dearest dogs, and other people who are very loved to me. So it's just life helps in that sense,
In that
because it
case,
is
would it
so
have helped
sad.
you tell your story, the experiences you were currently going through while putting it together?
What was that? Repeat that.
In that kind of space, so did you lose your parents while you were while you were putting the story together? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean they were older, but yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So did that help shape the story in any sort of way?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, it made me even question things that I thought that I understood about the subject and that I thought that would work or that I would do certain things in the story. Um, it also gave me more information. It confirmed that it was something that I wanted to do and I wanted to work on. Then I thought it was important to say and do. So it was very it was key. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So in that case,
Even
life
when I
definitely.
lost my dog 2 years ago, it was like, I lost one of my dogs, and it was like, a whole. My friends were kind of like, maybe she lost it, but I was like, oh no. And then I call people, my dog is dying. You want to come and say goodbye? and
Aw.
and and it was like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll go by. And then at the vets. We like sang him a song, and I was like so conscious of this whole process of dying and preparing and also doing a process that would help me also to deal
Yeah.
with it, that I sort of apply it to everything I do. And
So in that case, your life and your story was paralleling one another at the same time. They kind of
yeah, in some ways,
probably,
yeah.
yeah, helped each other. Juliette, how would you pull a story out? How do you do that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. It really is varied. My stories come from moments. I wrote an entire feature story based on how a couple met, because his story and her story were completely different, and then there was a third party involved, and I was like, wow. And then there was like a fourth party, so I made it a whole story about these four people meeting in this one night. Snippets of conversation. This last film is an amalgamation of different conversations I have had with some past encounters with guys in romantic situations. Some of it.
Right.
So yeah, it's and because because of my background in psychology, I'm always fascinated how humans interact. So I'm always listening, always looking, always eavesdropping on conversations, and loving. I'm a collector of people's stories, and I always to warn people, you never know when it's going to come back and turn up in one of my films,
In
which
one
has
of the
happened.
movies.
Yeah. So yeah, my inspiration is really from all around me.
Ayana.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of varied too, but one of the things so it's like two things really. One, this is gonna sound a bit crazy, but when I feel like I'm really inspired, sometimes I feel like I dream like what it looks like.
Happens to me
And
too.
so usually I try to, either like wake myself up and be like, you need to write this down right now.
Me too.
You know?
Same here.
So definitely that. And then the other thing is, like Juliette was saying, I tend to feel like just the last thing that actually I'm working on was I had a conversation with my husband that just was quite innocent, and it sparked like a whole idea. So what I normally do is write the dialogue first. That's sort of just free flow and a sort of like she said this, he said this, because I tend to feel like with the style that I like is more about what's being said as opposed to what's happening, like before sunrise, where it's just the entire thing is just one long conversation, but it ends up being just really moving. So I tend to do the dialogue first, and then things that need to come out. I flesh out all the rest of it. But I feel like the story comes to me most naturally when I know what people are going to say to each other. So that's usually my jumping off point.
Okay. Yeah, so you take the writing approach, like the dialogue approach first.
Yeah, definitely. Dialogue
rather
first.
than visual. Okay.
Yeah.
We do have another question from Kathy. How do you producers feel about the organic approach regarding budgeting? I saw a lot of faces there. Nobody wants to talk about budgeting?
Organic is the word that they should use?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but
to me that sounds like organic is not having enough money to do what you need to do. So.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can do so much with just that, and I feel like sometimes that's a bit of the trap that people fall into, is thinking that like you need the best camera, the best sound equipment, the best all of that. And then a perfect example, I mean, for me, she's like the blueprint Issa Rae with Awkward Black Girl, who then has Insecure on HBO. I mean, that started, if you watch, I was a fan from the start. So if you watch like the pilot of Awkward Black Girl, the production value is 0. But the story is phenomenal. And it's from that she got this whole HBO series. So sometimes I think that, I think that's what's being asked in the question, in a sense, is that you don't need like a huge budget to make a good story. And I think we do sort of fall into that trap that you need all the best things. But I think, yeah, once you can look at the budget that you have and film something that's good and that's kind of in line with what you can do.
Any feedback?
Yeah. Is Juliette talking?
No, she's not.
No.
Just in case. I mean, I agree. I mean, I think the most important thing to begin with to me for a film, it's to have a good script. You know, you have to have a good script. You have to have a good story. That's the main thing. It doesn't really matter. You know, I'm pro, and when I do give workshops, it's like I like people to shoot with the phone camera. So, you know, yeah. I mean, what's important is a good story. Oh my God, my battery's running low. But I'm maybe because I come from documentary, maybe because I come from a way of guerrilla filmmaking, that I'm just used to also making it work. You know, I am used to making it work with whatever, you know, you have. And I think I'm a professional of that, of sort of making things with what I have and making it feel, and sometimes it even challenges me to be more creative, you know, and I think that's fantastic. But there's also something to be said about, you know, what the type of stories, or how much easier and how much more you had to suffer making a film, you know, because there's still people, you know, you still have to pay rent, you still have to pay, you know, your kids' school, you still have to pay, you know, there's things that needs to be taken care of in life, and you know, and so, and if that's what keeping some people from making films, I agree, it shouldn't be something that keeps you from making films, but it becomes it is a reality. Hard.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume for something like a feature would be different than doing short films. I think you might be able to get away with it easier. I would say, for instance, depending on the type of story you have, you will have a crew, you have people to feed, you have, how do you guys feel? I want to hear input from you, Andrés, and Juliette as well.
I'm really bad with budget. I'm really not to talk about that. I have the best of the producers, Pablo Lozano. He's the guy, and he's not here. So yeah.
Yeah, see, mom is the word. Okay, Juliette.
Yeah, with budgets, I try not to be organic as much as possible. I mean, I just kind of go in knowing like I've done everything I can to get what I can for free, be it locations or feeding the crew or whatever, that I know, okay, this is how much I have to work with. And just, try and stick with that. But yeah, definitely as a low budget filmmaker, using every resource I can to keep the budget low and practical. I've definitely learned to figure stuff like that out early.
And what about wearing multiple hats? Talking about budget, like as Caribbean filmmakers, we a lot of the times we can't just be a director or you can't just be a writer. A lot of the times you have to wear multiple hats. Out of all the multiple hats you wear, which do you think is the most difficult? And why? Or challenging?
I can speak for myself. I do not like handling the camera. So anytime I have to actually shoot, I don't want to, because it's just not something it's just not something that I'm particularly good at. And then there are people that are good at it.
Right. I think
coming back to what Macha was saying with the whole thing with budget, I mean, there is no doubt that the more money you have, the more helpful it is.
Yeah.
And the guerrilla filmmaking has its place, but it would also be nice for us to actually be, making films and getting paid, of course. But yeah, and for me, it's definitely any camera work is just not my.
I definitely think you touched on something there. I think it's important for us as filmmakers. I mean, sometimes we have no choice; we have to do it if we want to get the film made. But I think it's good for us to know what we are good at and what we're not good at, and where we should fill in the gaps.
Because each thing is a craft, and it needs to be respected as such. And so sometimes the whole I need to do everything actually is a detriment. I see that I'm going to do the editor plug, but I see that a lot of the time where people don't feel like they need an editor, but you do sometimes actually need outside fresh eyes that don't worry about the shot that, you took 8 hours to shoot. If it's not serving the story, it's not supposed to be there. And the thing is, I wasn't on the set. So I'm not going to be looking at that and saying
there's no bias.
8 hours, let's see how it fits. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes that's an important thing to actually say, okay, how can I get at least my key people to be other people to best serve my story?
Right.
And in my case, above all, I'm really hate budgets, money. I'm really bad with that. So I really hate above all when you're starting that you may not have the producer on board yet, and you have to do a budget to apply to a certain lab or whatever. I really hate that. I'm really bad with that. So yeah, I really love producers because they can do that.
You love producers. Yeah, a lot of the times we do end up producing our own material. Macha, there's a correction from Kathy. She said Macha said she likes to approach directing organically. I was asking, how does that approach affect your budget? I see.
Okay. No, yeah. I am actually, I guess, because when I started more helping other artists to produce their work before I started working on my own, and I like to produce cultural events. I have a mind of a producer and of trying to get things done with, like I said, with what I have. I mean, I'm really good at getting things done in a way that it are using as little as possible and still feel good and cool. And, so that has helped me a lot in filmmaking. So I can adjust even when I wrote the script, which might be not good, or maybe some people will think it's not good for writing, but I was sort of thinking of locations, for example. I was thinking I don't want to complicate this too much. I'm thinking this is only just this amount of locations and that kind of stuff, because I just can't help it, because also I know it's a reality of producing film here, so I want to be conscious of that as well. It's making, at the end, it's making my life easier too, because then I can really get this film done. So I make some sort of adjustments in that sense. So
yeah, I think a lot of the times Me as well. When I'm writing a script, because I'm primarily a writer and an actor, but I produce as well, and I can't help but think like a producer sometimes, because you want to get your work produced. You have to, if you're attempting to do it in the Caribbean, we are aware of our limitations, so you kind of just have to roll with it sometimes, you know. There's a question for you, Andrés. Can you confirm rumors that Candela will be in theaters soon?
We're working on that, like to bring the film to theaters in the Dominican Republic, maybe Puerto Rico. Hope Puerto Rico for November. But we're working on that. So hopefully, yeah.
Okay, great. Do you guys find that there's a divide between Latin America, well, let me say Latin Caribbean and English-speaking Caribbean?
Yeah.
Like, we don't view each other's films, do we? We don't.
Absolutely.
There's no co-production. There's no, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's also like a racism, you know, in Puerto Rico. I think there's a lot of racism. So that has also held back that exchange, that cultural exchange, you know. It historically has happened even through music, you know. Like in Puerto Rico, you would hear reggae like maybe some bar, like some hidden, like in the 80s. Now in the last 20 years has really come out, and now with reggaeton, and you know, it has really brought it out, and it's just more, you know, known and commercially known and all that. But historically, it has been, you know,
why
really,
do you think
really.
that is? Do you think it's just the language barrier? Do you think it's our responsibility as filmmakers to kind of come together more? Maybe we'd have more power as a Caribbean space. I mean, there's also the French-speaking Caribbean as well. So, what are your thoughts?
I think that is a really complex answer. The Caribbean is a really complex place.
Yeah.
With a lot of different realities, languages, histories, stories. You know, so we live in islands. More of us. So it's not only because of the language. I think, like, because it happened the same with, for example, with Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. Like, I think that in the last, I don't know, 5-10 years, that barrier have been like closed down. But in a way, like, I don't know, like, films from Puerto Rico don't come to the Dominican Republic. So I think that we have a really big problem with distribution in the
Caribbean region.
In the Caribbean region.
It's not a competitive thing between you guys, is it? Or is it just distribution?
I think that it's a problem of distribution. I think that, like, we're lucky to have a place like ttff for watch our films, to talk, like this panel, like between us, to meet each other, because we need more spaces like this festival in order to maybe someday be able to watch like our films, you know.
Collaborate, maybe, you know, put films together more.
And it's hard to travel in the Caribbean. It's not cheap. We don't have boats, you know.
Isn't that nuts? It's so expensive to travel from island to island.
It's, for me, it's cheaper, maybe, I don't know, to travel from the Dominican Republic to New York than to Trinidad, you know.
I mean, for me to get to Dominican Republic, because I actually, when I wrote my feature film, I went there and I stayed there for a month, and I wrote by myself. I love Dominican Republic. I have a very soft spot in my heart for it. I have some good friends over there. But to get there, I either had to fly through Panama or I had to go through Miami. Why is there not a direct flight? You know, I mean,
so that's like what I was saying about history. It have to, like, with the colonial, I don't know, history. You know, it's from there, back there, from the Spanish people, from the English people, from the French people. It came from there.
Yeah. So maybe it's up to us now to try to create some
more co-productions. It's important, I think, to make films trying to, I don't know, to tell our Caribbean stories. We need to do that. We need to see more like to our culture than the culture of, I don't know, the United States maybe, or
Yeah, I think we would have.
Preach.
What do you think, Ayana? Yeah, we'd have a lot more power, right, if we all came together.
Yeah, I have to go, guys, but I just wanted to throw in one thing. I just suggest that we subtitle our films and share them in the film festivals so that maybe we can reach more people that way. Yeah, but I do have to go. It was
Thank you,
great talking
Juliette.
with you
Safe
guys.
travels.
Take care. And all the
Okay, bye. Oh, we lost Macha. Maybe her phone died. Her battery died. Yes, yes, Ayana, sorry.
Well, I think it's also kind of like what Andrés was saying too. Like the Caribbean isn't a monolith, so I think there's also that we do kind of have different stories to tell from the different islands, and while they might be similar, there is something to be said about the fact that a Trinidadian story is not going to be the same as a story coming out of the Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico. But definitely, yeah, we need more of a like just if we want to just say a Caribbean voice that is out there, then yeah, I definitely agree that there is power in numbers if we start as just the Caribbean.
Yeah.
But understanding that not all the stories are the same, even though they're coming from one region.
So, what would be the best way to break down that barrier, you think?
Well, I think it's just this. I honestly, I feel like it's just the accessibility. As long as there are more films coming out of the region, then more people can be interested. Sort of what Macha was saying, it's easier to get your stuff out. You can put your things on YouTube, like people can sort of see them. There are avenues, even though there's no doubt that it's difficult. But being able to actually make the stories is sort of the starting point. Once we have enough stories, then they will get out there once they're good.
And do you think maybe, Andrés, I don't know, if we integrate, like, let's say a Dominican DP with a Trinidadian director or vice versa, and mix the actors, like doing a co-production of something like that, or a different country? I'm just using our countries, but do you think that would help, guys?
yes and no, because on paper it looks good, but at the end of the day, to be able to do that with, I don't know, with international funds, is not so easy.
Right. Yeah, because you need the co-production stuff.
The co-production.
Right.
So for me, like it's a pity that we are not there in Trinidad+Tobago right now. Like we are like doing this online. It has its like advantages, but because I think that we have to get more together. We have to talk more. We have to see our films. We have to, I don't know, maybe if I was there, I could like meet some other filmmaker and take, I don't know, 3 films to the Dominican Republic. You never know. Just baby steps.
Baby steps. Yeah. Okay, so I want to lighten it up a little bit and just ask you guys. Well, first off, I'd like to ask you what your biggest, I wanted to ask everyone, but your biggest takeaway, your biggest lesson was from your latest film. Like, I always like to ask people what they learned from their last projects, because there's always something to learn, I feel like, when you do another film. It may not come to the top of your head right now, but if you do think of it, just let me know.
For me, I think that editing is key. I learned that like in the process.
Yeah.
You can change a lot of things.
In the editing room.
You can save your films. You can make scenes more powerful. And also that filmmaking is a collaborative process. Like in film festivals, like invite like directors and all that, but at the end of the day, like we are here, but we have like, I don't know, in my case 80 people behind me. We did film all together, so more than ever, I really believe that filmmaking is a collaborative process, and that films are really 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 hard to make, and it's more like it's like a long race more than a a race of fast race, you know. It's
Yeah,
not about
marathon,
getting
not a
there
sprint.
like soon, but getting there, and it's hard, and you can spend like years of your life trying to make a film. But yeah, for
Yes,
example, with Candela, we spent like
been there.
8 years
Oh
Yeah.
to
wow.
make this film. But it's for me, it's the most like the better job in the world.
Rewarding.
Yeah.
Yes, it's quite
Yeah, it's
rewarding.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I also want to ask you guys. Ayana, you can also. Sorry, did something come to your
No,
mind?
it's all good. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a bit like what I was saying. You just do it. That's kind of how I felt. Like I think I was yeah suffering a bit from imposter syndrome as well, and doing this particular project just made me feel like, you know what, like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so sort of just to everyone else, I'm like, just do it. Just
Yeah.
at least find one project that you can just sort of get off the ground, if with a small crew, and just do it. And it boosts your confidence, it makes you feel, and then you're able to tackle the bigger things.
Yeah, I feel like shorts tend to do that a lot for me. I don't know if it's the same for
Exactly.
you guys. It gives you that confidence. It makes you feel like, oh my gosh, I could do this. Like, you know,
Right.
I'm doing the right thing. Yeah, I completely agree with you as well. So I love to ask people what their dream project to work on would be. Like, if you had everything that you needed, if you had any budget you could have, what would you want to create? Like,
A true crime documentary for Netflix as an editor. That would be like just I would, and yeah,
why
that's
Netflix?
the dream right there.
Does it have to
I
be
mean, I
Netflix?
just like, it doesn't have to be Netflix, but right now I feel like Netflix has really kind of cornered that market, and they have they have a style that's very like fun, even though it's true crime. But that was so I feel like and they're very creative in the way that you do it. So I can see that a lot of this stuff is done in the edit. Obviously, it's a documentary, so yeah, for me I'd be really happy working on something
So
like that.
while you're on that topic, do you think Netflix is a good thing for the modern day filmmakers, or is it bad for cinema? Like, what are your
Oh, well, I
thoughts on that?
definitely don't believe it's bad for cinema. That's like a completely elitist view of who cinema and film belongs to. But I will say that I think that people get the impression that you can just get your stuff on Netflix, and I don't think it's not as accessible as people think it is. But I think that's also just like, quality control, etc. But I don't think it's doing any damage to the industry. As a matter of fact, in some ways it's great. I mean, I've watched things that I don't think I would have had access to at all.
Yeah, I mean,
And yeah, so I don't think it's doing any damage at all.
do you guys think there's
Film
hope
should
for
be
the
accessible.
future for a Caribbean section on Netflix? Netflix, are you listening to this?
I would love to watch.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it would be. What about the so like on these streaming platforms now, you get to watch everything, you binge everything back to back to back. Some people are saying that is pushing everything is steering towards television, and it's film is kind of dying. And what do you guys think about that? Andres, let me start with you.
I don't think that like cinema is dying because of all of these streaming platforms. I think that like nowadays there's like 100 or 1,000 like every day.
Yeah.
For me, for example, I watch a lot of the Criterion Collection channel, and that's like, great films there, and great films there, and Netflix, there are also great films there. So, and YouTube too, so
Yeah, exactly.
it works for me, and I download the films too, and I buy films, so everything works for me.
Yeah. You think the same, Ayana?
Yeah, I don't think it's wait. The question was if it's like gearing things towards TV as opposed to
Yeah,
film?
if like film and TV is taking over the reins over film, because you're seeing. I mean, you're also seeing a lot of big actors that would never step foot in a television series. All of a sudden, these big actors are doing TV, and they're seeing the value in television as well. I mean, Yeah.
But I feel like the binge thing kind of feels like just an extended movie, right? Like it's because if you watch it 8 hours in a row, it's just like
8-hour movie.
It's a movie. It's not actually that you're waiting every week to watch it, which would have been the TV style. I just think it's. I mean, if you want to say that it's serialized, but I think there are still a lot of people that like films and that want to watch movies, and that's never gonna go anywhere.
I think that cinema is not going to disappear. It's just like we're going to have more things. Like cinema is going to it's going to have to compete with more windows.
Yeah,
Theater before cinema, when cinema came out.
Exactly.
So it's the same.
But
now,
one could argue that theater has kind of died, huh? It's kind of gone down a bit.
It's going down, of course.
But then you have Broadway.
But then
so
you have
it's
Broadway.
what theater.
And then the experience of watching a movie in a movie theater is never going to be the same as watching the movie on a computer. It's not the same. For me, you can experience a film or a watch a story. They're like different.
Well, what if you got a big screen TV and you put it in a dark basement? Is it the same?
It depends. How is this sound?
How big is the TV and how dark is the basement?
It depends.
Yes, no, I agree. For me, going to the cinema, it's like going to Disney World. I feel like I'm going to Disney World every time I go to watch a movie in a cinema.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm missing it. I'm missing it now during COVID. How have you been dealing with filmmaking over the pandemic? What's next for you guys?
Well, it hasn't had a huge impact on the editing industry. As a matter of fact, while in school, they're basically saying that it has helped because now, exactly, people realize that you can actually hire an editor from anywhere, and that that can be done. You may have to meet towards the end to polish and that kind of thing, but you don't have to move an editor somewhere to get them to be able to work. It is a job that can be done entirely remotely. So in terms of the pandemic, it hasn't actually affected my ability to freelance or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I know the same has happened for writers. Writers are getting hired all over the world now, whereas before you had to be in specific places.
Exactly.
Which is strange, right? Because we always had this medium. It was only until we were forced to use it in this way that
then you see the real potential. Exactly.
Probably a good place for Caribbean people or anybody else that is trying to branch out into different territories right now from any part of the world, Andrés.
We have been lucky in the Dominican Republic because with the pandemic, we really didn't stop making films. We had now we have all these protocols with the face mask and all that, but we have been shooting, and actually right now I'm in the pre-production of a new film as a first ID. So it's more complicated to make films now because of the COVID tests and all the the face mask and all that, but
probably adds a little bit to the budget.
Yeah, exactly. But we have been shooting, so
so it hasn't affected you too much. Yeah, and I think that's a lesson we should probably all take as filmmakers. We shouldn't let it stop us. I mean, do what you can when you can. I mean, if it's pre-production time, pre-produce. You know what I mean? Get your stuff together.
Right.
We have one more question before I wrap it up here. It's for Andrés. Can you make a happy movie? Talk about happy endings in a movie.
I think that Candela for me is really funny, at least for me. I don't know if I'm going to make a happy film because I don't really watch comedies, and I don't really believe in happy endings so far.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be organic for you. That's something I wanted to touch on as well.
So it depends. It depends of what happens in next year.
Yeah, you never know what happens to change your mood, right? To change what organically, what you want to do. But that, I mean, we're pretty much out of time. This was really lovely. I have to say thank you guys so much. And thank you for the audience for engaging in the discussion. Again, I have to remind everybody the panel was brought to you with the support of Shell, Trinidad and Tobago Limited. To check out the films, go to ttfilmfestival.com for dates, so you can find a full list of all the film festivals there. A lot of them have already played. There are a few left, so get there quick. We have 2 days left. If you have any feedback, please be sure to email me, admin@filmco.org. And if you do happen to post about us on social media, please tag us. On behalf of the TTFF, we hope you all enjoyed this panel, and we hope to see you again at other events. Thank you, Andrés, and thank you, Ayana.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
No problem. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.